Welcome to your reading and happy belated birthday. Before I get started, I want to say that the things that I'm going to talk about here are things that you might have already worked through. When I look at a chart, I can see, what the life path, the life trajectory is, but I can't see, how far you've already come on that journey. So I can see the journey, but not where you're at on that journey. So if there's anything that I mentioned that, like I said, you've already worked through or is not an issue for you anymore, then I guess you can just disregard that information. The first thing I want to talk about is your Mercury. And you said you're somewhat familiar with astrology, so I thought, well, I'll just do this visual and that way that gives you something to look at in case you're interested to see exactly where in your chart these things are at. So I'm going to talk about Mercury there, square Pluto. The square aspect is indicative of internal conflict. So there's two different parts of your psyche or being that are in conflict or at war with each other. And then Mercury talks about your perceptions or reasoning, your intellect, your mind. And based on the placement, it's in Capricorn in the 11th house. This is telling me that your perceptions or reasoning will grow through self-mastery or integrity in your career or public role through your goals and network, which is that 11th house piece. And being a fourth line, that's going to be really important for you to have a network of individuals that's going to support you in achieving your goals. And then with Capricorn, the learning that's needed is learning how to isolate for pleasure. So a lot of times with Capricorn, they're really isolated. They don't have a lot of friends, or they don't have like a big social network. And we can take that circumstance and we can turn it into something positive by taking that natural isolation that we find ourselves in, that natural loneliness, and using it to find out what we love to do, and then take the time for yourself to engage in, whatever hobby or work that you find enjoyable. And that's the key to turning this conflict around, is taking that loneliness and using it in a positive, productive way. If you do this, you can gain a sense of where you are and where you want to go, and then you can start building a network of people that can help you to achieve your goals. And then with the square itself, we can see that the issue with doing this in the past has come from a perceived sense of powerlessness with Pluto, because Pluto's about one's personal power, caused by the relationships that you've had with others, beginning with your mother. And with an open solar plexus, you need to have and hold boundaries and learn how to engage in healthy conflict if that's something that you're not used to doing yet. That'll be another key to resolving this square. An example I could give would be, maybe your partner doesn't want you spending time working on a hobby or doing things just for fun. And with an open solar plexus, it's really hard. The not self theme is you want to avoid that conflict, so you might do what your partner wants just to avoid that conflict. And that would be a real life example of the square here, and how that would result in you feeling powerless to change your circumstances. So far with this square, the two keys in resolving it is, having and holding those healthy boundaries and engaging in healthy conflict when necessary, and then taking any isolation you experience and use it in a productive, positive way by, using that time to figure out, what you do enjoy, and then just do that, just engage in those activities. Doing this will allow you to engage in and develop a connection to yourself, something that your relationship with your mother didn't allow you to do. And as you do so, you will take back your power and get out of victim mentality. Okay, I'm going to erase this, and then we're going to look at the next square, which is Sun square Lilith. Okay, this tells me that there currently is or has been conflict between your ego identity, which is the Sun, and your natural primal instincts, or sacral response, if we want to look at it in terms of human design. That's what Lilith represents. And because Lilith is in your first house here, that means that you are the literal embodiment of the Lilith archetype. When you have Lilith in the first house, people can automatically, it's in your aura that you're tapped into this wild instinctual feminine, and a lot of people fear that because it's something, they don't know what you're going to do, they don't know how to control you. And again, because it's in your first house, you're just like this living embodiment of that. And, which will provoke a lot of fear in different people. So that's just something to be aware of, And then the dynamic here with the signs, because your Sun is in Capricorn, again, it's that, engaging in activities that you enjoy, and, using that isolation in a positive, productive way. That aspect of yourself, your identity, has been in conflict with this wild, instinctual feminine, that inherent sacral response. And here Lilith is in Aries, and the unconscious expression of Aries is fighting with others, feeling like you have to fight with others, fight the world, just to maintain, your sense of autonomy, your sense of ability to, just your sense of your right just to be you, right? You feel like you have to fight others just to maintain that. And that would be the unconscious expression, just being in isolation and trying to maybe control others in the world would be the shadow expression of Capricorn. And then the conscious expression, the productive use of that energy would be taking that isolation and that control and applying it to things that you do have control over. Like, how am I going to spend my time? What do I have control over? I don't have control over other people or their emotions or anything like that, but I do have control over, what I enjoy doing, and I have control over my time, and I can spend my time doing those types of things. So we take that and we apply it to this Lilith here. It would be, okay, I can use my time trying to fight others and feeling like a victim and like I need to protect myself, or, which is a power under, which is the shadow side of that Pluto energy. It's the power under. I don't have any power. I feel like everybody's trying to take away my power. Or we could flip that around and we could say, okay, well, inherently I do have power, and instead of trying to fight everybody else, what healthy, productive battles can I engage in that are going to improve my life and improve me. You know, what can I fight for that is going to be productive in my life and help my life and make me happy? So that would be the conscious use of this Lilith energy, you know, using that instinctual wildness to engage in healthy battles. You know, one battle could be, okay, instead of trying to fight everybody else, I'm going to fight myself. I'm going to prove to myself, you know, what I can do and what battles I can engage in and win. So one example of that might be, you know, doing this shadow work, doing this healing work, because that's a huge battle to have to go into doing all this reprogramming and doing all these behavioral changes, because it's really scary to do so. So that would be a way to deal with this Lilith square. That would be the remedy for this. Okay, I'm gonna erase this now. Okay, next I want to talk about Chiron, your Chiron in Aries, which is here. Okay, I got some notes here. Okay, so you have the sun in Capricorn, and Capricorn, the shadow side is control. So I know you mentioned a little bit about your relationship with your mother, but the sun usually denotes the father, unless the mother is the primary caregiver. So I don't know what the dynamics were with your parents, but if you did have a father present, I would guess that he would have been the more controlling one, and then the moon over here represents the mother, so that would be like more of somebody who's critical of you, you know, always nitpicking, saying what you're doing wrong, things like that. But you know, some caregiver attempted to control you and caused your wounding around conflict. That's what this Chiron is, wounding around conflict. And with this wound, what you're supposed to be learning is courage, or how to fight for yourself instead of fighting others, which, you know, is the same archetype as Lilith, so it's basically restating what I just said before. In your body graph, so I looked at your personality Chiron, which is, you know, similar to your astrology chart Chiron. So in your body graph, this unconscious fighting with others doesn't allow you to complete the cycles or lessons that you need to in order to move from an internal state of disempowerment or victim mentality to one of personal empowerment. You know, that gate 42 in the sacral, it's about, you know, we're entering a cycle, we're entering something new that our sacral has said yes to, ideally. A lot of times it's things it said no to, you know, before we come to human design, but, you know, like a marriage, a job, something that just is not right for us. And we enter this, and the only way to close that cycle and to get out of that cycle is to do, you know, the healing work, to do the shadow work. Because if we don't do that, we just keep attracting the same type of partners and work and things that, you know, that we're familiar with, right? We attract the same type of partner that our parents were, you know, the same type of personality, the same type of characteristics, until we do the healing work, and then we can stop attracting those things. We can close out the cycle, and that's what that gate 42 is about. So it's only through our actions or choosing to do things differently that we move from powerlessness to power. And we can do the same things we've always done, which only results in the creation of destructive battles and life crises, where we can choose to engage in reprogramming our learned beliefs, attitudes, and coping mechanisms, which would result in a conscious, productive battle, again, like I said. so that is for that, and then let's see what else I have here. Saturn square Uranus. Where is it? Saturn. Okay, so you have Saturn and Leo in the 5th house. Saturn is the part of our being that is relegated to our self-discipline. So with this Saturn placement, your self-discipline will be developed through fun and play, which is good news. It's always good to develop your self-discipline through something fun. By using your sacral response to identify activities that you find pleasurable and then engaging in them, you will complete the identity that you never got the chance to as a child, which will allow you to get to know who you really are for the first time. And the issue with doing this in the past has stemmed from that primary caregiver trying to control you. And the action that you need to take to heal your wounding is allowing yourself to fully feel all the pain that is in your heart. When we stuff down our pain, it surfaces as unconscious anxiety, or the feeling that something bad will happen to us. And this expectation that bad things will always find us in life is part of the shadow of Gene Key 42, because I know you said you're familiar with the Gene Keys, so, which is your personality Chiron. And this fear that bad things will always happen to us is true and valid. You know, it's a true fear. We don't feel it for no reason. But we don't understand where this fear is coming from. And it's coming from, you know, that refusal to face and fully travel into our own pain. Because when we do that, we self-manifest the things that we most fear. You know, bad things do happen to us when we don't feel and process our deepest emotions. Things like disease, divorce, and poverty, for example. And we think these things come from the outside, but they're really manifestations of what's inside of us. You know, the chaos and the disorder that's inside of us, that manifests externally. And the only way to create an external reality free of disorder or those bad things that we fear is to nurture an organized, correct internal space, which comes about through a full embracing and traveling into of our pain. And this process of having to travel into those deep places, that's what the Scorpio in the 8th house is indicative of. That's how to resolve this conflict, you know, by doing that, by sitting with those really scary emotions, which is something that we don't learn how to do as children. You know, as children, if we don't have a caregiver who can sit with us to process those really heavy, scary emotions, we never learn that that's something that we can do, and we never learn that it's something that's safe to do. And we still have this terror alive inside of us as adults around doing that. Because the child fears doing that. It feels like if I do this, I'm going to be annihilated. So that's something that has to be done. You know, that's the non-fun part. But once you do that, then this conflict between, you know, your true individuated self, which is Uranus, and your self-discipline, which is Saturn, can be resolved. And once you do that, you'll see that, you know, there was really nothing to be afraid of. You know, when I did this for the first time, I had the fear around it. And when I actually did the experience, you know, when I did it and I experienced what the outcome was, it was actually a really beautiful mystical experience, you know, mystical experiences. It wasn't at all what I thought it was going to be. So I would encourage you to start doing that if that's not something you're doing yet. And then doing that will allow you to develop that self-discipline that you need to begin growing through fun and play. That's what the Saturn in Leo in the 5th house is telling me. And then I also looked at your nodes because, that's a big part of our journey. So with a South Node in Taurus, our South Node it's our past life identity that we bring forward into this life, and over the course of our life, we are asked to integrate and learn about the polar opposite energy of that past life identity. So for you, you're coming from a past life and childhood orientation of Taurus, which, it's an earth sign. I believe it's a fixed sign. The developmental stage of life that Taurus is associated with is that toddler stage where everything's about object constancy, right? They can't understand that things that are not within their vision are still there. They can't process that mentally. So with the past life orientation of Taurus, this is, it could play out as somebody who is afraid of change, somebody who wants things to remain the same. They can be, I guess the key word for Taurus is stubborn, so they could have some stubbornness around things wanting to stay the same, but that's just not the way that life works. Life is change. There's nothing stagnant about life, and so, with that, it can be difficult to embrace the changes that a person needs to heal and to grow some of these things. And then, coming into the Scorpio, which I already talked about, which is about going deep, deep into things that will transform you, things that, those experiences in life that transform us, death, anything that's taboo, sex, just any of those really transformative life experiences is something that you're being asked to experience in this life and to integrate, to learn how to integrate that energy with this Taurus energy, because they're polar opposites. The last thing that I saw was that you do have Moon in Virgo. This moon placement can be really self-critical, and they can believe that even in their shadow work and their healing work, they want to do things the right way, right? Quote unquote, the right way. Again, this is indicative of a critical, nurturing figure in one's life. It doesn't have to be your mother. So that's something to be aware of, just as you engage in your journey and your work. Maybe find an objective party that can listen to you and, can give you some feedback around where you're at in your process, because a lot of times that can be really helpful to avoid some of these natural tendencies that Virgo has, just to be so self-critical and think that they have to do things perfectly. And healing work is really messy. Anytime you step into fear and into the unknown, you don't know what's going to happen, and a lot of times things get really messy. So that's just part of it, part of what comes with doing this work. Yeah, so let me try to do a really quick recap on the remedies. Okay, so for Mercury, Pluto, for this square here, the remedy for this internal conflict is learning and utilizing healthy boundaries and healthy conflict in your relationships so that you can regain your sense of personal power. And doing that will allow you to use your time alone, your time in isolation wisely and productively in the form of finding things that you enjoy doing and engaging in those activities. That's the remedy for the square. Okay, and then for Sun square Lilith. So embracing your instincts, your sacral response, getting really good with tuning into that sacral response and honoring it, because that's what Lilith is. It's that wild, feminine, instinctual response, doing that and using that inherent instinct and that inherent response to engage in battles that are going to be productive, things like healing and shadow work, or anything that's going to be, help you to improve yourself in your life. That's what you want to focus on. Forget about everybody else, forget about what they're trying, how they're trying to control you or what they're saying, because that doesn't really matter. And doing that will dissolve this conflict between that part of yourself and your sun or your identity. And you can begin using that identity in a positive way again, which is going back to that Capricorn theme of, using your time alone wisely, using it to engage in things that you find, personally meaningful and fulfilling. Okay, Chiron and Aries would be similar to the Lilith theme. So undoing the childhood wounding, the developmental abuse or neglect, is again going to be engaging in productive instead of destructive or futile battles. Engage in battles with yourself. See, what are those really hard things that I need to do, and start doing those for yourself instead of trying to fight with everybody else. Okay, and then Saturn square Uranus. Okay, the remedy for this internal conflict between your self-discipline and, your true, authentic, individuated self, dissolving that internal war or conflict, is going to come about through you learning how to sit with your emotions, sit with your pain, and fully traveling into that and fully letting that pain be expressed in and through your body. And doing that will teach you how to use that self-discipline to engage in activities that you find fun or pleasurable, which, will feed back into your sun. Now instead of this identity of maybe a loner or somebody who's trying to control others because they feel like they've been controlled all their life, which can also tie into one's emotions, right? Capricorn is really good at stuffing down emotions and trying to control one's emotions, which ties into this Uranus and Scorpio, that needing to stop doing that. And then, your identity can be transformed, and you can find the work that you really enjoy doing when you do that. And, all this stuff is connected. I'm sure you're seeing that. I'm seeing it. But, doing all the remedies for all these squares is going to get you where you want to be. It's going to get you to a place where you have a career that you love, you have a partner that you love and enjoy being with. And I guess the last thing I want to say is that most people, until they do this work, they believe that external objective reality is out to get them. Oh, poor me, these bad things always happen to me, which is true, but what they don't understand is that it's not the universe, it's not God, it's not other people that's out to get you and is doing these bad things. It's us. It's that we're not taking the action, we're not doing the remedies that we need to do for our own life to improve our lives. We're so focused on the negative because we don't want it to happen, right? We're like, well, if I focus on the negative, I can make it not happen. But that's not the way things work. It's by focusing on the positive, that's how we change our reality and how our external reality changes. We don't manifest nice things in our life when we have an inside that's all messed up and chaotic and whatever, because we don't engage in the behaviors that we need to have the kind of life that we want to when we still got all this stuff going on inside from childhood that we never dealt with. So that's my reading. Hopefully it was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. All right, that's gonna be it. Take care. Bye.